In the old days, you needed to go into another country and steal their...
Yeah.
With derivatives, you don't need to actually do that.
No.
You just manipulate financial markets to steal people.
Today, we have Max Keiser discussing the current state of global affairs and how the U.S. empire and its reign as the world's reserve currency may be coming to an end. Keiser also shares his insights on Bitcoin and how the financial systems in place are not sustainable. He expresses his surprise about the sudden increase in the price of gold and discusses the reason behind this explosive bull run. Keiser believes that gold's spike signaled that the baby boomers are preparing for a massive conflict. He contrasts this situation with Bitcoin and believes it's the future of humanity. He says that we're not only in a conflict between countries and currency, but also information. Let's get right into the latest interview with Max Keiser. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.
We're at that change in the cycle. The boomers are clearly now no longer in charge. The boomer era is clearly over. And so many other eras and cycles are coming to a turning point where the U.S. empire had a 100-year reign with the U.S. dollar as world reserve currency. Seemingly now that's coming to an end as well. Gold is for boomers, and it's a bet on death and destruction. And Bitcoin is for everybody past the boomers.
It's an escape hatch out of their hate asylum.
That's the main point. That's the theme.
I was surprised when a friend sent us a message saying, hey, look, gold just soared through 2000. I was like, what do you mean? It's like Saturday or Sunday. Only Bitcoin trades on the weekend. And lo and behold, it was a weekday. And yeah, gold, I looked over there and it was 2022. So then I started to look and see what the news was. And of course, the news was that Finland had, become a member of NATO officially that same morning. And then you could see gold spike up. So I'm going to read you this really amazing tweet thread. It's just 2 tweets. It's like one of the best tweet threads I've ever read. And I wrote it. So gold is signaling that boomers are still in charge and they are not going quietly. They want to go out with a big bang. Just as Hiroshima, Nagasaki heralded the age of the boomer, their war in Europe promises to send them off in the same way that they entered the world. So it was almost like celebratory. Of course, when Bitcoin goes up in the same sort of trajectory, usually it's like, you gotta pump it up, pump up. Like there's like fun and joy, right? But when gold does that, it's like bad news. It's like always like on some dire situation like this. So I followed that up with a little bit further clarification of my thoughts. And Bitcoin is a bet on the future of humanity. Gold is a bet on the boomer fantasies of nuclear annihilation being made real life. And the boomers have been preparing for the latter since they were first conceived in August 1945, which is when Hiroshima, Nagasaki happened. And the first boomers were born in 1946. So I'm saying like they were literally conceived amidst the fallout of a nuclear fallout. Yeah. And Bitcoin is the escape hatch from their hate asylum. And I just did a GIF looking for nuclear stuff. And I assumed like to find a GIF that was going to be, a nuclear explosion.
Mushroom cloud.
Yeah. Instead, it came, one of the first was duck and cover.
Well, I think, what you're getting at is that literally speaking, the signifiers and the symbols and the signs of a cyclical turn are visually there. They're in the database. They came up with the duck and cover right away, which is a signifier of the boomer era. Yeah. And we're at that change in the cycle. The boomers are clearly now no longer in charge. The boomer era is clearly over. And so many other eras and cycles are coming to a turning point, the fourth turning, the Thucydides trap, which you like to talk about often. When one power rises and another power falls away, another empire, right? We're seemingly at a moment like this where the U.S. empire had a 100-year reign with the U.S. dollar as world reserve currency. Seemingly now that's coming to an end as well, to hit a cyclical turning point. All of the other countries out there that were forced to use the dollar are now not using the dollar. Most notably, 2 that I saw last week, aside from Russia and China, would be Saudi Arabia and Japan, have also decided that they are no longer on the US dollar as reserve currency bandwagon anymore. They're going to start trading commodities and something outside of the dollar. So, yeah, to your point there, so we're at this turning point. It's a cyclical turning point. I think it just goes back to, again, this idea where the unwillingness to see the truth objectively requires an ever greater elaboration of the tale, of the story, of the narrative, of the drama. The last thing anybody wants to do is to look at this truthfully.
Yeah.
The truth is, if it was trading on the New York Stock Exchange, it would be trading at zero. So the truth is the first casualty of war. How about that? That's a quote you often hear. We're in all kind of war, information war, we're in a hot war, we're in Thucydides' trap, which is turning into a hot war. We're turning into a cold war as a hot war. So the first casualty is always truth. The total ability in the United States, however, during the American century and the history of the United States was to allow some room for the freaks and the weirdos to think different, as Steve Jobs would say. And that was the saving grace. I remember back in the 1980s, there was this idea that Japan was going to take over the world, that the Japan factories were running more efficiently than in the U.S. factories. And it looked like, oh, wow, the American century's over. Japan is on the rise. The Nikkei average was almost at 40,000 yen. And then what happened was the internet exploded in the 90s. And the internet favors nonconformity, whereas in Japan, the rise of their industrial might was based on conformity. And suddenly, nonconformity was the way that you become successful on the internet. And it was that Cambrian explosion of ideas and business ideas on the internet in the 90s, where that gave us Google, that gave us Facebook, came a little bit later, but eBay and all these other internet giants, Amazon. This was all based on kind of the American garage independent thinker who creates a company from nothing and becomes a multi-trillion-dollar company. And that was really the change in the cycles at that time, the change in the shift. The Nikkei peaked at 40,000 yen. It got all the way down to 8,000. Now it's done better since then. But so we're at one of those moments. But I don't, because of this freedom of speech curtailment, I don't see how there's going to be a generation like a Steve Jobs generation to step in and innovate, because they'll be shut down. When people say, oh, it's socialism for the rich and capitalism for the poor, that's a common meme that's been popped up for a few years since Occupy Wall Street. And that what that refers to is this exact idea. Since the invention of derivatives and the cleaving of risk and reward into their separate components and trading separately, you have the ability for the Wall Street class of individuals to keep the reward and dump the risk using financial derivatives products. In the old days, you needed to go into another country and steal the...
Yeah.
With derivatives, you don't need to actually do that.
No.
You just manipulate financial markets to steal people.
Keiser points out that countries such as Saudi Arabia and Japan are moving away from the US dollar as their reserve currency. He believes that it's a sign that the dollar's dominance is coming to an end. Keiser mentions that the boomers created the financial system, which separated risk from reward and allowed for the manipulation of those markets. He maintains that the financial system is rigged and in need of a serious overhaul. Despite gold's breakout, he believes that Bitcoin is an escape hatch for everyone else in the world. What do you think about Max Keiser's prediction for the next few months? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.